That. Welcome to the episode of DadpooL's Discussions. I'm your host, Dadpool, and tonight our guest is none other than Chris R. Notarile from Blinky Notarile from Blinky 500. You might have seen his face or his voice before. I mean, his fan films are widely known, but we're gonna touch on some other topics tonight. But go ahead and introduce yourself to the people that may not know who you are, and give them the quick backstory on yourself.
My name is Chris Notarile. I am the head of Blinky Productions, BCU Comics, and I make a lot of fan films. Some of you may have seen them, and for those of you who haven't, I highly advise you to check them out because there's a lot. I have something for everyone, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, your range from fan films, they go from anywhere from John Wick to Scary Terry.
Yep.
to just about every horror genre. So there's definitely something for you, whether it's action, comedy, horror, whatever your favorite is. There's a fan film that Chris has made.
There's very few topics I haven't tackled, to say the least, about what I've done. And a lot of things I do are more on the not obscure side, but on the, I guess, random side. Like everyone's done, like a Batman fan film, and I've obviously done one too, but I like to try and go for the characters that are not as known, not as seen, or don't get enough either. Either they've been betrayed by Hollywood or they've been ignored by Hollywood.
And that's the beauty of what you do. Like you could take, like, obviously everyone knows Rick and Morty.
Mm-hmm.
And Scary Terry's only been in a few episodes. For you to take that character onto the big screen for a short and make it so accurate is just amazing. So with your fan film abilities comes, when you do original content, which we're going to talk about tonight, obviously from fan films, there's a lot to pull from. There's a lot of source material, a lot of inspiration for you to make your film. When it comes to original, what drives you? What's your process to make an original fit? Either a feature or a short, or some of the short books that you've written that are available right now to purchase, which you've turned into animations as well. Like, where do you get that inspiration to make that original content?
Well, great question. A lot of that really comes down to what I want to see. So usually I pick a genre first, and I go, you know what? I want to do a horror movie. I feel like scaring somebody. And then I go, well, what kind of horror movie do I want to make? Do I want to make a slasher film? Do I want to do something supernatural? Do I want to do something, psychological? Then I go, all right, what are the tropes of that genre, and how can I avoid them at all cost? And I figure out, let's say I want to do, you're wearing my Random Acts of Violence t-shirt. So Random Acts of Violence is a slasher movie. And I said to myself, I want to do a cabin in the woods style movie where, you got killers in the woods, they're coming to get you, but I want to subvert the idea. So I said to myself, I saw The Strangers, and I'm like, wow, Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler are really incompetent. These two people are terrible at surviving. They almost deserve to die. How can I not have my protagonists be like that? And then I created my whole story concept off of that. And, I used a lot of other things around the time that inspired me. Like, for example, in the bank robbery scene in The Dark Knight, William Fichtner's character comes walking out with a shotgun, and he's shooting at the Joker and everybody. Like, you have any idea who you're stealing from? And I really love that idea of this guy is just like, oh, you're robbing my bank? No, you're not, and he went nuts with it. And
yep.
I imparted that onto, my protagonists of what happens if the victims are more dangerous than the perceived killers. And that's where, that particular one came from. But it all came from the idea of, I want to do this particular setting, killers in the woods, masks, slasher, and that whole like Last House on the Left thing, The Strangers, so on and so forth, and subvert it. That was where the idea really came from, just the idea of how do I take this genre and how do I subvert that genre.
Now I know I've had the privilege to be able to see some of that story for Random Acts of Violence, and I'm telling you, Hollywood, you gotta call this guy. You gotta contact him, get in touch, because this man's ideas are original. They're out of left field, but they make sense. Some people who go to make a film, they may have all the premise, all the purpose, but their stories just aren't coherent. Your stories are psychologically are terrifying, depending on the genre, and they're intense. Your language and your use of words and camera angles and lighting give you that special effect of creepiness. All, again, keyword, on a low budget. Less. We talked about less than $2,000. Sometimes we can even talk about Jack and Jill's $60 budget.
Yeah.
I mean, I revisited that short, and you couldn't tell. I couldn't tell it was made out of $60. If you never put that at the end of your description, I would never known it was $60, because the acting, the delivery, the one shot, the scenes, I mean, they were amazing.
It's clear vision.
It is, yeah. So coming from that film, to see your progression from that 16 years ago to what you can do now, if you actually had a studio budget, oh my God.
Yeah, sky's the limit with that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the approaches I like to take when I'm trying to pitch myself to people is,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you like what I did? Well, it cost pennies. Now imagine what I did with money. And that's a huge angle I always like to approach, because people are like, you did that for what? Yeah, I go, that's not possible. It is. Look, it's right there in front of you, I really like being able to challenge myself with the concept. Like you mentioned Jack and Jill, for example. I needed to get a TV station, and those aren't easy to get, and it's hard to find one, but I had to figure it out, and I had, luckily, earlier in the year, we did that in January 2010. So back in 2009, I think I actually did get invited to that station by someone. So I think I'd already been there, and I was like, hey, you still work at that location? And he's like, yeah. I go, can I film there? And they're like, okay. But it's just a matter of putting the pieces together. I've been on a couple of other local networks as well. So it's just that one just happened to be the most recent one, and that one was the one that worked out. In events where people are like, no, you can't, then it's just a numbers game of calling until somebody says yes,
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. You could take characters like Jack and Jill, and people would immediately assume Joker and Harley, which could be the inspiration for those two characters.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because they actually started out that way. The Jack and Jill script is actually my Joker 2 script for my 2006 short Joker. I wanted to just do a sequel, and I thought, how cool would it be if they just took over a TV station and executed everybody? But when I realized I wasn't, Brian, who had played my Joker back in 2006, he was still in California and I was in New York. So getting him out here was impossible. And I lost touch with the actors who played Harley in that short. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. It's a really cool idea. Let's do something original. So I color swapped and made Jack and Jill instead of Joker and Harley. But I changed it up, and I put in a new element, a Jason Bourne style element, with them being, ex-operatives. And I went that direction. But it's hard, too, because you have to change things up, because usually Joker is the more loud character doing wild stuff, and Jack is not. He's more reserved, but he has his maniacal moments. And Harley is, the anything you say, Mr. J, and Jill is basically like almost mute, essentially, unless she's screaming at somebody.
Yeah. And the impression I got of Jack was almost Jack Napier-ish from Batman '89.
Yeah, I could see that. Brandon, who had played Jack, we went with this more like animalistic way where it's like, you know, he's smelling the guy and he's just kind of savoring things more. And Nicholson definitely had more of a savory way to his performances, not just as Joker, but even in like other movies, you know.
Yeah.
So we went that route with the character. So yeah, it's interesting, you know, also just seeing how something goes from being what would be a fan film to something that's now original and how it has to change. And that's not the first time that's happened to me either.
Well, go on and explain what other occurrences have you had to adjust from fan film mindset to original?
In 2013, I was going to do a Titans fan series, and I had written the script, and then I believe it was TNT announced they were going to do their dark and gritty Titans, and I go, "What? I thought was my idea." They hadn't even shot anything yet. They're just like, "We're going to do dark and gritty Titans." I go, "But I was going to do that." Now that's just me. This is less than 6 months of me coming off of having my Deadpool web series shut down by Fox. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm angry. I'm upset. I don't want to deal with any kind of legal bullshit because maybe Warner Brothers will come after me now because Fox already came after me once. So I said, screw it. I'm going to take my Titans short and I'm going to turn it into something original. And that was how the official BCU was started, because my cast lineup was Wonder Girl, Cassie Sandsmark, Raven, Cyborg, Robin, and I then, and I was gonna have Superboy in there, and I ended up swapping everybody, and I swapped out Wonder Girl for the Centurion, Raven for Phantom Faye, Cyborg for the Specialist, and Robin for the Avenger, and then Superboy became the character Subject Zero that they were hunting, basically. And that's how the proper BCU essentially started. Was it was supposed to be Titans, and then it vastly and drastically diverged and became its own thing.
That's amazing. And by the way, the Titan series wasn't all that good either.
I'm glad, actually. I'm glad about that. When I saw that trailer where he's like, "Poor Batman," I go, "Dude, you're a 30-year-old and you're still wearing a Robin costume. Shut up."
And I remember the whole Deadpool thing too, because I know, was it later on when he did the Christmas promo? You had already done something similar to that Christmas promo.
Short, the Christmas special was in 2009, and then in 2013 we did, you know, the proper Deadpool web series, and for whatever reason they just shut me down. Episode 1 and 2 were slowly going viral, and we had gotten like, I think, 10,000 hits in like a week, which is pretty good for me back then. And then right before I put episode 3 out, I got a copyright strike on my channel from Fox where they yanked all of my Marvel shit, and I go, "What the fuck? Your YouTube channel liked my Elektra short, and now you're pulling me? Like, what the hell, guys?" And I actually went as far as to call up Fox. I got in touch with their legal department. I go, "What gives? Why are you doing this?" And I shit you not, and I even feel like I'm lying to myself when I say it, but these are the words that were said to me. He said, "You made us look bad."
Oh my.
And I then said, "Then hire me." And he said, "No," and he hung up.
Unreal.
Very unreal. It's very surreal thinking about it now, because, you know, it's been 10 years, and remembering that it's almost like they actually admit that to me over the phone. And am I dreaming this up? Am I insane? But no, the guy said, "You made us look bad." And I was like, okay, well, you're an idiot because you're not going to hire me. And then thankfully Disney, you know, ate them. I hope he's out of a job now.
Well, to get to transition to some more original, let's talk about Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle just got released, got a theatrical release, and I know that you had written a full feature back in 2007. So, kind of talk about that. Kind of talk about the story that you had in mind. Any casting that you would have done with that feature had you had the opportunity to make it. Yeah, you could just elaborate on that.
it's interesting because it's been so long, but I wrote that because back then I was under the impression that old Hollywood still existed, where you write a script, you know, meet up with the right person, share your idea, they like it, they bring you in, you pitch it, fantastic, wonderful, done deal. And so, a early 20 something me wrote the feature and the plot of it. And the other reason why I wrote it too is because my friend at the time was writing a like, I guess, like a Blue Beetle biography on the entire publication of the character,
Okay.
which he had included me in the book, but they cut me from it, and I was really upset about that. But he did send me um, a printout of my section of the book included. Unfortunately, that got destroyed in the most recent storm. I was very upset about it, but I managed to at least take a photo of it. But the plot basically centered around Ted Kord's origins, and what I wanted to do with my version of Blue Beetle was actually focus on the legacy aspect. I wanted to have Dan Garrett in there as Blue Beetle at one point, and then, like, within the first act, he's, no, I'm sorry, by the second act, he's wounded, dies, and then passes the torch to Ted. So we have a Blue Beetle from the beginning. We see him in action, then we see Ted Kord coming up. The two of them cross paths. They go to Pego Pego Island. Everything kind of plays out very close to the book,
Mm-hmm.
and then Dan dies, Ted takes over, and so on and so forth. Now, the one thing I wanted to add to it that I thought would be kind of cool was Dan had the scarab the whole time, and because I think they did imply that he had the scarab um, in the New 52, but he passes the scarab on to Ted in my story, and it starts to bond with him, and then Ted drops it and loses it.
Mm-hmm.
But it bonded with him long enough that he now has like a psychic link. So later on in the scene, he actually has a scene where, he talks to, I guess, the spirit of Dan Garrett, and they're bonded through the scarab now. Even though, and he realizes just because he doesn't have the power doesn't mean he can't be the Blue Beetle type thing. And that was kind of it. I want to take like a Batman Begins approach to this character. And the angle I always thought about it was Kevin McGuire had said that Blue Beetle is basically like John McClane. You know, he's rich, yes, like Batman, but he has that laughs in the face of danger type thing. He's always gonna make like a joke or a quip because he's quippy like that. And I wanted to make sure that part of the character was there that would separate him from Batman and elevate him from Spider-Man. Because he's not a kid either. He would be, in his he'd be in college essentially, and he'd getting into his late 20s. And then finally, the climax of the story would be with him fighting a cybernetic version of Jarvis and realizing that you don't need to have a big CGI battle. That was another thing I wanted to do too, was there wasn't going to be a big CGI battle at the end of the whole thing. It was Ted literally outsmarting the villain by realizing all I have to do is just remove the processor from you, and that's it, you're done. And I think that was what sets my story apart from a lot of superhero movies in general, and what sets Ted Kord's Blue Beetle apart from a lot of superheroes in general, because he does use his brain. He is a smart guy, and he doesn't need to have the big bloated CGI battle. He needs to just think of the right thing to do at the right time and then do it.
Yeah, I mean, CGI looks good. Everyone goes to see movies nowadays for the big action scenes and big explosions. It's not so much cerebral anymore. And this character in this script was very cerebral.
Yeah, and you can still there still are fight scenes in the script.
Mm-hmm.
He's fighting the Madmen, and he is fighting robots and little Terminators and shit like that. But at the end of the day, I think an audience would respect the film more and the character more if he actually did do something smart. A small action can be a tremendous action, creates a domino effect. And having me not having a third act battle, like in Iron Man, for example, the villain always has the same tech as the hero in some capacity, a bastardized version. Iron Man, Warmonger, Blue Beetle, and I don't know who the villain is in the new Blue Beetle movie. He has his own scarab-like tech. Hell, even Bloodsport Was it Bloodsport? Not Bloodsport. The one with Vin Diesel that came out like 2 years ago.
I
I
remember that one. Yeah, it wasn't
that one. Yeah, the
yeah.
villain in all origin stories, the villain always has the same proprietary tech as the hero.
Yeah.
So in this one, I wanted it to be that the villain doesn't have the same proprietary tech as the hero. The villain is operating on the proprietary tech created by the hero, which means the hero knows its weaknesses and how to destroy it, not using it himself, but knowing that it's like having the plans to the Death Star, basically.
Yep.
And I think that is a good angle for Ted as opposed to any other hero.
So, was there any point from 2007 on that you were considering making this into either a web series or its own little fan film short on its own, using your story and kind of breaking it down?
In 2006, I did make a trailer for it where we did include some scenes, so to speak, in the trailer, specifically Ted at Dan Garrett's grave, Ted fighting Jarvis, the Madmen. But it was just a little tiny trailer I did, and I played Blue Beetle at the time. And then I did attempt to do a radio play of it, but it was too much of an undertaking for me back then to pull off, and I don't know if I have the desire to do it now.
Okay.
Just because, why bother, in my opinion. But I did attempt to try and do a radio play way back, as far back as 2007.
Okay.
And then after that, I kind of just put it on ice and didn't bother looking at it until I got word that Warner Brothers is doing a Jaime Reyes movie. I'm like, well, shit.
So, with that being said, and not pursuing or having certain things, not be able to do the radio play, it was too much at the time. If you were to go and do that feature film and be able to create that, say they love your idea, what would your casting look like at that time? Who would you have playing those characters that we all know and love?
Knowing full well I would never get away with being able to both direct and star in the movie, because I did want to be Ted at one point. I would have gone with the 2007 Chris Evans for Ted Cord, because I believe he had, I loved his take on Johnny Storm. And I think if you were to just put a little bit more of a Bruce Willis angle to that, you'd have a really good Ted Cord. And speaking of which, Bruce Willis would be Jarvis. Jarvis Cord, just because I wanted to have somebody who could physically kick the crap out of Chris Evans. And 2007 Bruce Willis could definitely kick the crap out of Chris Evans if need be.
Yeah.
Also, he would help. It would also be a nice homage to the earlier days of Ted Cord, where they said he's kind of like a John McClane type. So having him in there, I think, would be really nice. And then, Kristen Bell was kind of like, she was into comics, I think, back then. She had a lot of comic booky stuff, even though it was nothing big. And I wanted her for Tracy, Ted's girlfriend.
Nice.
And, and Aaron Eckhart for Dan Garrett, just because of that freaking chin. And again, this is pre Two-Face. I remember seeing him, and I think it was Thank You for Smoking. I'm like, that guy is ridiculously handsome for no reason. So he'd be good for Dan Garrett, the blonde adventurer who just found the scarab and then became a superhero.
Nice. Yeah, I think my casting going over back in the day, I think I had Christian Bale as Dan Garrett. I was torn between Clive Owen or Daniel Day-Lewis as Jarvis.
I would have gone with Clyde, just because Daniel would be a little too intense. Like, I love him and I would love to cast him and shit, but I feel like I would regret it, because like if I cast him as a villain, he'd want to kill me. Or Daniel, you're gonna be playing a cyborg. All right, I'm gonna go get some surgery. I'll be back. Gonna just get a robotic arm or something, right? I'm a method actor.
Yeah. And then Lieutenant Fisher was Tommy Lee Jones, just because I feel like he has that presence. I feel like
he does have that dryness to him. I went with a Ray Liotta because I wanted to have somebody. I was going for more of a Jersey vibe, and Bruce and Ray have that Jersey-esque vibe to them. I don't remember where Evans is from, but I'm pretty sure I think it was Boston.
I think he's somewhere from the Northeast. Yeah, something.
Yeah,
like that.
so everyone has like that East Coast vibe to themselves. So I was gonna definitely stick with more of like somebody who was almost like Detective Bullock, and I think 2007 Ray Liotta was right up there.
Okay. Yeah, my Ted Cord. I know you went with Chris. I went with Zac Efron. Just
I would have gone with I want to say like maybe a 2010 or a 2015 Zac Efron. I think he was a little too young back then because he does before he put on the muscle too. Because we're talking High School Musical era, so he would have still been really scrawny. He didn't start putting on that muscle really until he did Neighbors, and I think that was like what 2012. I want to say
2012, 2013, something like that. Yeah.
2012, 2013 Zac Efron would be fine in my opinion.
Okay. And then I had Hayden Panettiere as Tracy, just because she's the girl next door. She's good on the eyes, and I feel like that era. I'm strictly just looking at 2007 actors and actresses. I wasn't looking beyond the scope of where they are right now, just at that time.
Yeah, that's the thing too. For anybody listening and watching, we're talking about them back then in 2007, not them now, so to speak. Like, I'm not going to get Captain America to be Ted Cord. That's not no.
And then I actually, Jaime, I had casted. I had a few people. I had Danny Ramirez, who is going to be the new sidekick to the new Captain America. I had Anthony Ramos as well, who's starring in the new Transformers Rise of the Beast movie. I thought, I was looking for someone with that Hispanic descent at that time in 2007.
I think in that particular script, though, in that time frame, either Jaime wouldn't be born yet or he'd be like, a 5-year-old. So even if I were to show who Jaime was, which we don't have any scenes in New Mexico, it would be basically a child.
But if you were going to set up something for the future, or have maybe like a stinger,
I would show the armor. I wouldn't really show him per se. I'd just be like, like a silhouette of him with the prongs coming out.
Yeah, and the way you describe the armor in the story, it's about 100 pages or so, and just the way you described everything, I could visually see the scarab molting and the armor molting to the skin. I could see it as I'm reading along, and how he's reacting to it happening, and what's going. I can visually see him like almost panicking when he's putting that on.
Like, I guess Akira, with like the weird shit coming up the arm. It would not be something that would be welcoming because it's alien tech. I don't know what it is in this new movie, if it's alien tech or it's cord tech, but this, in my version, it's alien tech, and it's horrifying essentially when you first think of what's going on. I didn't want to try and keep that allure of it.
So what do you prefer to? If you could, going forward, are you gonna stick with making fan film shorts or original shorts, or are you gonna focus more on going with the feature script?
I'm gonna basically do a bit of both. I'm gonna do originals indefinitely.
Okay.
I'm gonna do fan films once the strike is over, and until my career as a filmmaker progresses to the next level, I'll keep doing shorts. And even if I am successful, I might do a short once in a while just for fun, because I do view short filmmaking as like working out for me. So it's the equivalent of like when a bodybuilder goes to the gym and they have to maintain their size or increase their size or just even slim down. They're working out so they can get ready for the competition. The competition for me is the feature film. But what do I got to do in the meantime, in between features? I got to work out. So I'll make a short film here and there just to keep my skills up, just to keep my wits sharp about me, and to have some fun too. Why not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm all for it. Like when I see you post on Facebook, I'm thinking about making a fan film. What are some of your suggestions? And I've seen, you see the wild ones that are just unrealistic. But then there are some realistic ones, and I'm glad that you continue, because you did take a break for a while. So I'm glad that you're back into it. Because when you did come back, I was stoked for it. And like
I
again,
was happy to come back, and it was really more of like I wanted to just make sure I was doing things that either A, I never thought I would be able to do, or I always wanted to do and couldn't, or B, I'm giving platforms to some of my friends who are actors so they can show off their skills. Like Kingpin, that was a present for my friend Paul because, he's a great actor, but he doesn't get a lot of lead roles. And, work's dried up right now in Hollywood. So it's like, you know what, dude, let's do Kingpin. Why not? And so I'm like, you going to shave your head? He goes, yeah. All right, fine. We're going to do it. He shaved his head and we shot. Amalgam, that was one for me because I really, really wanted to finally see those characters come to life. And I've been waiting since I was, a teenager, a tweenager to do something with it. So I finally did. And yeah, and every now and then I'll do an original thing because I want to just experiment or explore. But also, I'm not gonna lie, it helps to be interactive with my fan base because I stay relevant. I keep talking to people. I don't want to fade into obscurity.
and your fan base isn't just like that 20 to, I don't know, 20 to 40-year-old range. I mean, you've got some kids books out there that you've written. If you want to talk, maybe share more about that, maybe where you could find
Yeah.
them, and go into that character of Elsa.
So I have a witch named Elsa, which is my children's book, and for Elsa, I wanted to have a children's book for no other reason than I wanted to do it. And I wanted to do a book that basically indoctrinated children into the idea of comic books and Halloween. I want to start them off young. So I said, what cooler way than having a witch who likes comic books and then exploring that. The witch she has magic, so magic can do anything. So what if a witch went into her own favorite comic book and met a superhero? And I went with that. And obviously there's, the nice little morals along the way of expanding your horizons, and it's okay to want to do different things. It's okay. And then the second book, it's okay to be yourself rather than live up to somebody else's expectations. And yeah, it's just fun for me to be able to do all kinds of different things, to be able to successfully tell these stories, to draw them, to be able to say, there, I finished it, and then to own a physical copy, a hardcover, and go, yeah, that's my book, there it is. And my next ultimate goal is one day I want to have a Halloween special. Gotta have that. That's on my bucket list. I gotta have a Halloween special.
Nice. And I'm sure. I hope that I can help any way possible. Whether it's promoting or sharing or helping out with the kick, the Indiegogo, things like that.
Well, if I'm having a Halloween special, there's not going to be an Indiegogo. We're going to have a studio back in that because I want to do like a classic Halloween special. You know what I'm saying? Where
nice.
Remember this what was it? Witch's Night Out, or the night Halloween almost wasn't, or Garfield's Halloween special. Like the old classic ones from like the 70s and the 80s. I want to do something like that for myself where it's literally it's something only going to come on once a year. It's Halloween related, and that's that.
And do you want to film it in that retro style, or do you want to put a new age?
No, we'll shoot it presently, like in Kurtha. I don't want to film it like it is from the 70s, but I would like to have that big idea of the big sets if I can. Either if we do live action, a big set, and the character Ilsa is there in the flesh talking to the camera, and then she goes on an adventure. Or if or we have animated segues where we dive back into the actual story, but it's fully animated with like an Elvira style live action interstitial,
Mm-hmm.
But it's something I definitely want to do in the foreseeable future. Don't know what the story will be yet, but it's definitely something I want. I want it to be something that's like an annual thing that you can, if you put it on TV with your kids every year, you watch it, or it's on TV every year during 31 Nights of Halloween on TBS.
Nice. Have you ever thought about doing like a live action studio audience production of one of your originals? Almost like you could treat it as a holiday
like a
special?
sitcom. It would be a sitcom. Unfortunately, no, just because of the ideas that are behind a lot of my stuff are too big, I think, for sitcom.
Okay.
It would only work if there was a laugh track rather than a studio audience because, you know, like, for example, I have a TV show I want to do called Soccer Mom, which is about a superhero mother. So she's a mother of three and she's a housewife, but she also has the powers of like Superwoman, essentially. And her husband doesn't know. And her next door neighbor is her arch enemy. And it's the war of like stage mom versus soccer mom, essentially, because her arch enemy is a stage mom. And stuff like that wouldn't necessarily work in front of a live studio audience. That's a one camera type shoot instead of a multi camera type shoot. I haven't written anything for multi camera actually.
Okay. Getting back to Ilsa and this, this the story and the message that is put out through the story you wrote. How do you handle the negative criticism that Chris Notarile is just a fan film and he just makes fan films. There's nothing original about Chris because I know I yeah I mean I know you hear it.
Yeah.
And I see it sometimes in the comments. So like, what do you say to those people that say, look, I'm doing what I want to do. I don't see you doing it. Like what's your defense of that?
There's a simple way to go about everything in life, and the answer is, are you paying my bills? And if the answer is no, then shut the fuck up. Unless you're paying my bills, you don't get a say in what I do. As long as it's not illegal, there's no fucking problem. And if I am making a fan film, leave me alone, because why? How do you know who I am?
Right.
Did you discover me through my original content, or did you look up, Michael Myers versus Jason, and I popped up? Because if you found me through a fan film, shut up if I'm doing a fucking fan film, because that's how you found me. Other people need to find me too. But if you found me through my original work and it's just like, no, I've turned my back on original work, I'm only doing fan films now, then fine, you have an opinion there. But no, I still want to keep doing original work. The funniest part is when people watch my fan film stuff and go, you should do something original instead of copying other people's ideas. They're like, have you bothered to spend more than 2 seconds on my channel, bro? Like, seriously. Also, how did you find me?
Right.
Like, what are you doing here exactly?
They won't admit they found you through a fan film, though. You know what I mean?
Of course, no. But they're commenting on the fan film itself. That's the funny part. Like, I had people who commented. I don't even know what anymore. It's probably just something stupid. But it's like they do say the dumbest shit. Like, you should do something original. And it's like, okay, did you look on my channel for anything? And the answer is always no, I haven't. It's like, then do it. And the best part is always people say I suck. Usually it's after they dislike me because of whatever reason. Maybe I disagreed with them. Maybe I wouldn't do their idea for free. And now, like, yeah, well, you suck. It's like, oh, I suck. Then why are you still here? Why are you still telling me I suck? Why don't you just go about your business? Because obviously I mean enough to you for you to repeatedly say how much I suck to my face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you know that, you don't really suck. You're just pissing them off.
That's when you know you've made it. When you have haters, you know you've made it, because hate is love,
And touching upon there's something I wanted to mention earlier that I forgot. How do you know when you're good at something? And I think of Die Hard, where Carl comes back downstairs from the roof and he starts smashing the trash can and kicking the wall. And then the pregnant woman says, oh my God, that guy is really pissed. And then what's her face? Holly says, John, our son of a bitch, he's still alive. And she goes, what? She goes, only John can get somebody that pissed off. And it's like, I like to be that kind of person where you get that kind of emotion, because it's one thing to have people watch your movie. What'd you think? But it's another thing where someone watches your movie and go, I fucking hate him, or I love it. Love me or hate me, but don't be indifferent to me.
See, I've always told you could pull off the Bruce Willis look in a movie. Like I've been telling that for years now. And
yeah, I could totally do it and everything. Yeah,
because you got this fucking attitude, and it's great. Like,
you need to be. It's people like to say that I'm arrogant or I'm cocky, and it's like, I'm not arrogant. I'm confident, and I'm not cocky. I'm quick-witted. if you're going to say something, I'm going to come back at something with you. And if you're not prepared for it, it's going to hurt your feelings. And there's a fine line between, when you're like, when you walk into a room and you have to pitch yourself, it's like, well, don't you come off as an arrogant prick? Like, no, they want me to sell myself. I'm the product. If I don't have confidence in myself, who else will? Who's gonna invest in me if I'm not willing to invest in myself? And I'm not walking in saying I'm the greatest filmmaker ever. The sun shines out of my ass. I'm walking around there saying I'm good at what I do. I believe in myself. I'm good at what I do, and this is a great story. Is it the greatest story ever? I don't know. That's for you to decide. But I am capable of complimenting myself and accepting a compliment. I'm not gonna. If someone compliments me, I'm going, oh no, stop! Don't say that, please. I must, put on my monk robes and never hear nice things again. No, compliment me, please. I love it.
And that's the thing. Like you said, people come to your channel and they don't even realize that you put out original. Your channel is very detailed on YouTube. It's very categorized. So you have your horror in a section. You have your original in a whole section by itself. It's right there, Blinky original. So like, it's there in their face, and I just don't. People just love to just hear themselves complain. I think they just want to hear themselves complain, and they want to take it out on the next person they see. And if they happen to be watching your film, I'm just gonna hate on this for no reason.
Well, a lot of people, the way it is, it's like they don't think I'm gonna respond. So usually when I respond, they go, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that." It's like, yeah, now you're in an argument with me. What are you gonna do? You're gonna lose. Is what you're gonna do. So, and sometimes, I've had people renege on what they've said and back down and go, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. But other people, they're going to take it to the bitter end, and it's like, all right, well, now I'm going to embarrass you. You ever watch I Think You Should Leave? It's like, I'm going to embarrass you. I'm going to embarrass you, Barry. So that's kind of my approach with everything, shame the stupid. But with my channel and the way it is, there's always something for everybody. And there's just anybody who says that all I do is blank does not know me whatsoever, and they don't know what I'm capable of because they haven't bothered. They maybe just see like a couple of fan films and they go, oh, it's just fan films. All right, fine, bye. Ignore the playlist that says Blinky Originals.
Right. See, and I love what you've been doing lately with the YouTube Shorts, especially with the Spider-Man. Look what I can. Spider-Man doesn't have to be $100,000 budget. Look what I've done with a shoestring budget. So your shorts recently are great.
Thank you. I think we only had about like $200 or something for the Spider-Man fan film. It wasn't a lot because the costume was owned by somebody, and I had already owned all the props. So I don't think we actually had a budget on the Spider-Man short, honestly. I think that was 100% nothing.
Okay. And it's amazing. I mean, these people, you gotta check them out. Blinky 500 description. Check his link out. So getting back to your animation skills, quite just recently, you developed a new character. You wanna talk about her?
Oh God, no! That's my illustration skills, and no,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's her. Stop. It's Hurricane.
Yeah. Do you have any plans on extending a story or possibly? No.
The most I'll do is like a 1-page origin. But I wanted to so California, if you've been living under a rock or you're watching this in the future, recently suffered both a hurricane and an earthquake at the exact same time. Now we're used to earthquakes over here, but a hurricane, we've not had one in 94 years, and we had one. And while I'm sitting there, the ground starts shaking. I go, is that a fucking earthquake? And it was. So I'm like, it's a fucking hurricane. And I posted that. And then within like 2 minutes, that was trending. Now, I didn't make it trend. Other people had the exact same idea as me as well. Mm-hmm. But it was ridiculous that hurricane was the thing. And I'm like, well, son of a bitch. And then I thought to myself, this is like a poorly written 90s disaster movie. And then I went one step further and I go, you know what? I want to see somebody try and develop a hurricane character because it's a shitty 90s name for a shitty 90s character. And then I decided, screw it, I'll do it myself. I Thanos my way to the finish
Yep.
line. And so I said, I want to make the most 90s thing possible. So I've done parodies before, and I wanted to parody Rob Liefeld's art style, which, as any comic book fan knows, is the worst artist ever. In fact, there's an insult from Deadpool himself where he goes, I'm going to mess you up worse than a Rob Liefeld drawing. And I love that line. I've yet to be able to work that into... I was going to work that into my Deadpool web series when he finally fights Sabretooth. We didn't get it. But yeah.
I would have got sued by Rob Liefeld along with 26.
Seriously. I think he's got a good sense of humor about it, though,
Yeah.
because, he did create the pouch. So he's kind of cool with it, I guess, knowing that he sucks. And he has gotten a little better over the years. But there was just a brief 25 years of him being terrible and god-awful. But, so I created Hurricane myself. And, her name is Hillary, Dr. Hillary West, because she's on the West Coast. And, she's a superhero and a woman, a scientist and a woman. Because that's what they did back then. So it's just a female superhero written by a man. That's but great. No, I'm not going to develop that. That's just god awful.
I could see it though, as like a short, like maybe a two minute short or something.
Not even. No. If I did anything, it would just be like a 1 page where you see her as like the doctor, where she's got like her hair in a ponytail with slut strands coming down and glasses, her big luscious lips, and then like a form-fitting lab coat with still her nipples poking through, and like a no skirt underneath, where you see her like holding like a vial of something, saying, "I was a scientist," and then the hurricane and the earthquake happening at the same time, and she's like, "No!" And you see her in her high heels out in this storm, and then that scene where like her clothes are ripped off, but like there's like blur strips covering her nipples as she's like, ah, that. And then the final thing of her in full costume going, I'm Hurricane now. Just like a 1 page. But that's as far as it would go.
So it looks like you put some thought into this though, because that's pretty detailed. Speaking of thoughts and putting your in everything, when it comes to Easter eggs in your films, how do you decide what Easter eggs you're going to link and connect in your fan films to give people a better understand, more of like, oh wow, I know I've seen that in one of his films before, and I see that in the background. So, what's your process with Easter eggs?
It really comes down to each individual project. It's a case per case thing. So with Amalgam, for example, Amalgam is Marvel and DC together as one. So I was like, all right, basically everything is on the table right now because I get to pick from Marvel and DC. So who are my characters? Well, I have Super Soldier and Darkclaw. That's 4 superheroes in 2. Mm-hmm. So I have, Batman, Superman, Captain America, and Wolverine. So I'm like, great, I can pull dialogue from each character and throw those lines. And then I got Hyena, which is Sabretooth and Joker. I can pull in a Joker line. I got Lex Luthor and the Red Skull. I can pull in their lines. I got Sharon Carter, who's also part Lois Lane. I can pull that in. And so I have now all these references I can just sprinkle in and really make people appreciate the story more or feel familiarity, because technically this is something that's never been done before.
Right.
Other things like, I don't know, in my Kingpin short film, I wanted to do an homage to the Dolph Lundgren style Punisher, for example. And that was really more of a cinematic homage, with him just being more of like this dark, silent type who has a lot less to say than Thomas Jane, for example, or even what's his face, the new guy, John
Bernthal.
John Bernthal, yeah. I wanted to just go back to basically the Punisher is this very quiet, machine-like person, and there's others. I'm trying to think of what comes to mind because I've done so freaking much over the years, but like even in Halloween, my Myers short films, I've had references and Easter eggs to either previous incarnations. Like in my Rise of the Boogeyman, the one with Judith Myers, we mentioned Mrs. Blankenship, who's exclusively in Halloween 6 and part of the Thorn saga. But I wanted to just like, I don't want to exclude people sometimes. So it's like, okay, if you watch Myers and then the first Halloween and then you're a Thorn person, you could still enjoy my short film. If you hate Thorn and you only want to watch 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, whatever, you can just see Mrs. Blankenship as a throwaway line and it doesn't mean anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it just really depends.
Okay. Now, you're an open book. I know me personally, if I have a question about something that I want to do, whether it's my short stories or writing, you're always there to kind of point me, give me some hints and direction of where, what to do, how to write it, what's the approach. And have you ever thought about possibly doing like a master class with yourself?
I've done stuff like that, actually. I've done
Like the
panels
Q&As.
I've done Q&As, but I've also done panels at conventions where
Okay.
my panel is called How to Shoot a Movie Without Getting Shot.
Okay.
And that's as literal as I can put it, because I've almost been shot a handful of times. And it's basically, how to maximize guerrilla filmmaking to your advantage. But yeah, no, I totally would. I just really need a venue in order to do it. But what I do is I talk about several instances that have happened to me over the years and how I've been able to utilize guerrilla filmmaking to its fullest potential, and not be murdered by police over the years, because I've come pretty close.
Yeah. I remember those stories. It's got to be scary to just think, all you're doing is shooting a film and people misjudge it and take it out of context, and it could turn deadly for you.
Well, the first thing you always got to do is keep your cool, no matter what. That's why you're the director. So if it's your movie, take responsibility. Don't pass the buck to anybody. Buck stops with you. And if guns are drawn and there's police barreling down at you, and all you're doing is holding a camera, and you got people in, Spider-Man costumes and whatever, the law is technically on your side. Just camera. Please don't kill me. It's a camera. Comply. They're going to throw you on the ground. They're going to be rough with you. They're going to be assholes. Just don't curse. Don't scream. Don't give them any reason to make them think they're going to be heroes.
Right. So, what are some of your personal influences? Whether it's your family, other peers, friends, or maybe a particular film that just made you say, "This is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to go about it." Maybe touch on some of those if you can.
Yeah. So I have said this before, and bears repeating. So the first movie that blew my mind as a kid would probably be 1990s Ninja Turtles movie. That one, the artistry, the puppetry, the costumes, the set design, everything about it was just like way too much for my 8-year-old brain to process. And I was like, whoa, oh my god, it's way too, whoa, I'm just
Yep.
blown out of my mind, right? And then flash forward to when I turned 16, I finally saw Halloween for the first time, and I knew I wanted to get into movie making, and I saw Halloween. I'm like, wait a minute, this is really familiar to me. I live in the suburbs. I live in a house just like that. I could do this. This doesn't seem like it's so much. It didn't seem foreign to me anymore. It didn't seem like it was out of my grasp for the first time in my life. I actually felt like I could do this myself. So after watching Halloween, I started screenwriting, writing scripts, horror stories, and whatnot, developing characters and ideas beyond just, oh, this is a superhero, this is a bad guy, whatever. Now I'm writing actual stories with the intent of one day filming them. And then I started doing it. I took a film class, and then I finally went to college, and I did animation because I wanted to be a filmmaker, because I realized in that film class, film students are fucking idiots. And I mean all the offense I can to film students out there. You guys have no idea what the hell you're talking about when you're talking about Kubrick and Tarantino. You drone on so much to these people, and it's just like, just shut up, all right? I don't need to see a black and white avant-garde movie about like some fat guy on a toilet taking a shit for 2.5 minutes or 6.5 minutes or 4 hours because you wanted to go really Zack Snyder with it. There's nothing wrong with having a commercialized approach to storytelling, and that's what I got from animation was a commercialized approach.
Mm-hmm.
I can still be a filmmaker, be creative, but I still have in the back of my mind, don't be too overly self-indulgent in what I do. You know, and you can tell when filmmakers are self-indulgent. For example, an amateur filmmaker is going to do a kill scene, right? So you're going to have the killer sneak up, stab the person, and then you have the bad acting. And that just goes on way too fucking long. And the other, going on way too fucking long, right? Blood shooting everywhere. It gets in slow motion. Someone's playing the classical music really loudly. And then, you know, they fall down dead. Then there's a close-up on the iris as it just lingers there for like 4.5 minutes before the eye finally blinks. And it's like, that's self-indulgent filmmaking. Knock it off. There's more effective ways to do that kind of thing. You know,
you see the blood just kind of trickle down a trail.
Yeah, and it's all kinds of silly and terrible, and everyone's trying to be the next Tarantino with their dialogue, and they're trying to be the next Kubrick with their style and storytelling, and it's like, be you, you know. So, yeah, what was the question?
Oh no, just like influences. If you had any personal influences that kind of steered you in direction.
Like I said, was the first thing that really made me go, I think I can do this myself. And from that point on, then I just started looking to other directors and their works to inspire me. And, you know, Sam Raimi with his gonzo style of filmmaking, Michael Mann with his like raw, gritty, punch you in the face style of filmmaking, Tony Scott with his acid trip filmmaking. I'll even say Ridley Scott with the beauty of his filmmaking and how every frame is just fucking gorgeous. His storytelling is not that great, but his filmmaking is fantastic. Catherine Bigelow and James Cameron both being able to do these epic stories. And then newer filmmakers like James Gunn is a fantastic filmmaker in my opinion. Who else I like? I'm starting to really like Greta Gerwig now. After seeing Barbie.
Okay.
And her knowledge of film history impressed me, and what went into making Barbie, the old school techniques she was bringing back, which kind of inspired me to want to do Robot Princess from Planet X, because I wanted to do classic sci-fi. I'm like, why don't I bring back some of the old storytelling styles as well? Because I've already done that with silent filmmaking. So yeah, it's interesting. You know, you learn from other people. It's always a learning process, but those are some of the people who have definitely influenced my work.
So yeah, I'm glad you brought up Robot Princess from Planet X. That'll finish this up here. So kind of give us a backstory, just a subplot of what got you. I mean, you just explained a little bit, but what, you know, where do you want to go with this? Is this going to be a one-off movie, or is it potentially something we could see more of? Maybe not the characters from this movie continue on, but maybe that style of film.
Well, everything kind of starts off as a one-off, and then if it's good, you find a way to make more of it. But with Robot Princess, I wanted to specifically do an ode to the classic sci-fi movies of the 50s. Forbidden Planet, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Robot Monster, It Came from Outer Space, stuff like that. And just tell something that was simple, but felt like it was made back then. I wanted to do something that felt like it was made back then. So I'm working on that now. And in terms of acting, like I want my actors to act like they're actors in the 50s. We're going to take it seriously, but the dialogue was written like somebody who does not have 21st century comprehension of technology because they're in the 50s, you know?
Right. Yep.
So we have, you know, the Humatrons who are part man and part machine. And we have, you know, they're in flying saucers and they have ray guns. Like here is the actual ray gun prop that we're going to use. You know, it's nice. A toy. But it'll look really cool when I shoot it in black and white and I put a muzzle flash in front of it. But right now it's just this.
And that's the classic sound effect you want.
Yeah, it'll just have, you know, better sound engineering to it. But yeah, I just kind of want to bring that back and see if I can make it work. And I'm not trying to shoot it like a modern day filmmaker either. I'm going to shoot it like I was in the 50s as well with those techniques. I've done that. I like to be a chameleon. So even with like the Hurricane character, I was trying to be a chameleon and copy Rob Liefeld's style. With whatever happened to Mace Windu, I tried to copy Tarantino's style. Like, what if Tarantino did a Star Wars movie? With my Myers short, I tried to copy John Carpenter's atmospheric ambient style and shoot the way that he would with lighting and whatnot. You know, I want people to feel like whatever it is I'm making is made by the actual person who made it, not me. You know, that way it completes the, I guess, the fantasy aspect of the fan film, because you want the fan film to be headcanon at the end of the day. You want to make something that people can watch and go, this feels real to me. This feels like Wes Craven did this. It's like, good. I don't want them to think it was Chris Nolan. I want them to think it was Wes Craven. I want them to think it was James Cameron, John Carpenter, whoever, because that's the ultimate goal of a fan film, you know?
Oh yeah, and you want to bring back that nostalgia feeling, of back in the watching TV around the old television set in that style of how it was shot and filmed. I mean, I see where you're going with this. So let people know where they can help support you in this endeavor to get this feature, this film made. Sorry, this fan film made.
Well, from what I can see, it's in the bottom crawl. You can go to the GoFundMe, Robot Princess from Planet X. There's a lot of dashes in there, but there's a link over here in the chat section. You can always subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Blinky500. I'm Blinky500 on all social media. So Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are my primary places. I have my books for free on Kindle. So if you type in my name, Chris R. Notarile, on Amazon.com, I should come up in the book section. You can read my BCU comic books, and you could read my graphic novels. You could read my children's books. And then, yeah, that's kind of it until my next feature.
And definitely, people check out the links are in the chat. They're also in the description, and you can link it from his YouTube channel as well. There's in his community section. It's in there as well. So yeah, go over there, show some support. If you can't make a donation, share it out. The more eyes you get on this campaign, the more support it can draw. The more interest it's only going to draw. And I'm looking forward to this being made. And there's some cool perks to certain levels of donation. I mean, when I want to maybe touch on those before we get out.
Well, I'm not like a traditional, Indiegogo or Kickstarter, but I am offering IMDB credit, and it's only $25, and you can get an associate producer's credit. $50 is a producer's credit, and $100 is an executive producer credit. And if somebody wants to actually give me like $2,000 to do this, your name goes above the title, and you present the project. I don't like to really talk about the perks just because I'm not asking for a whole lot, and I don't have a whole lot to offer other than a finished product that you could say you were part of. But yeah, it's kind of where it is. I'm not offering t-shirts or, custom toothpaste or a walk-on roll or anything like that. I'm not that kind of person.
It's still cool though when you're watching a film and you see your name in credits. That's still very.
And I try to make that worth it too.
Yeah.
In terms of, I want to produce something that you're proud of. I want to produce something that you can go, shit, all I gave was $25 and he made that. Nice.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and introducing and reintroducing yourself to the community. And everyone, go check out his YouTube. Go check out the Indiegogo Robot Princess from Planet X. Let's get this going, people. Okay. I'm Dadpool. This is Chris Notarile, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.